being with her and our old au pair from Berlin, because everybody's hunkered down. So I've been talking to a lot of people that I haven't been in contact with, which is really nice. But now I've been home. I'm going to be home till Thursday night. And then we'll see what happens, just day by day.
Sounds like a real mitzvah you're doing there.
It's easy.
So I hope it's okay. I thought it might be a good idea. I just hit record, and I'll save this recording so that the congregation can share it with anybody who's not able to Zoom in if they want to see what they missed in the conversation. So Sandy Koppell from New York City, that's my mom. She was supposed to be here this weekend, and clearly she's not. So what's the sit rep from New York, Mom?
Well, it's quiet when you walk the streets, not too many people. If I go out for a little while, take a walk for a mile or two and go with a mask and gloves. And other than that, I stay home. And if not for Zoom, I would be going nuts. I also play Mahjong on the computer.
Oh.
What's the name of the?
You play the. What? You're not what?
Nobody's good.
I finally got my 2020 card, and it's just sitting there not being used.
Oh no! Oh gosh, it's an interesting card.
So Judith, tell us how things are in your world.
Yeah, Judy. We're doing fine. As I said, we live out in Donny Park, so there's lots of woods around. I'm doing Zoom exercise classes and Pilates classes, either privately or in a group. Walking, reading, spending more time online than I should. We're having a Zoom Seder actually tomorrow night between Minneapolis and Chandler and here, because our daughter Renata didn't have the boys the last few days, but she's getting them back tomorrow night or tomorrow during the day. And Bob actually spent a couple of hours creating the Browdy Seder. Very brief, but and he said he learned a lot, and we all edited it, and we're doing that tomorrow night across 3 states, so that'll be good. It's hard not seeing people, but again, I'm spending a lot of time on Zoom, and I made a list. I went through my iPhone address book, and I'm trying to call 1 or 2 people a day I haven't kept in touch with for a while, or might ordinarily see once or twice a year when I'm in New York or something, and just trying to keep up. So that's been fun.
Yeah, that's wonderful. David, can you unmute yourself and tell us what's going on?
Yes, I can. It's been extremely, it's been busy and interesting. My daughter is home from school trying to navigate how online classes and how to do different things. And, and then I work at a hospital, and you might think that people in healthcare are exempt from the financial ramifications of COVID. But as a couple of people, I look at Rachel, can attest, because of the stopping of all elective procedures, healthcare is actually taking a ginormous hit right now, and we've had to cut staffing hours, and it's definitely extremely stressful at the hospital right now, unfortunately. But good to be home with family, and a lot of stuff happens by Zoom at the hospital now as well, and in meetings, quite a lot of meetings, and things are constantly changing. So it's been interesting and stressful, but but good overall. My daughter actually said something interesting last week, which kind of sums up the people, what a lot of college students are going through right now, and a lot of students in general are going through right now. She said, "I am in school without the benefits of being at school, and I'm at home without the benefits of being at home. Because you can't go see friends and everything, and she doesn't have the social aspects of school and all the buildings, and support that she can go to. So I thought that was interesting take on what people are going through right now. I am interested. Where is your mom in New York City?
52nd.
On East,
What's that?
54th and 2nd Avenue.
Did you say 52nd and 2nd?
54th and 2nd Avenue.
54th and 2nd. You are about 20 blocks from my mother, who is also on this call. She's not doing video, but she's also on this call.
Awesome. How fun. Rachel, you need to unmute.
There we go. All righty. So I also work for the hospital in a medical clinic with orthopedic surgeons, and yes, all electric surgery has stopped, but we are still doing urgent cases, and so we're converting to a lot of telemedicine right now, and I had to reduce my hours by half, but so financially it's not great, but I love spending the time with my family. And yesterday we officially moved out our older daughter out of the dorm, and she came back yesterday as well with her boyfriend Andy, who's here now with their puppy. So that's why I got a panicked look a minute ago, because Joe just said, "Where's Ellie?" The puppy. So we got her, but we're doing good. I'm walking with friends a lot, and just really wanting this to be over, because every single day it's something new that gets canceled, or for my daughter's program in a summer internship, or whatever. It just goes on and on and on, and I just want everything to be better in the fall, but we don't know. So yeah,
And not knowing is so hard.
yeah. So thank you for doing this tonight.
So Sarah's iPad, we can't see you, unfortunately. Are you able to tell us what's going on? Do we know which Sarah this might be? No? All right, Sarah, let me just see if we can chat with her. Everybody know where the chat box is on the right corner? I'm just sending Sarah a private message, and we'll see if she's got it. Good. All right. Yeah. So we had emailed out this handout. I also posted a link in the chat box if you haven't seen it, and if I can share it if I need to. I put together all kinds of materials about Passover and counting the omer and yizkor, and we'll just do as much as we can here. So the holiday of Passover, of course, is a biblical holiday. I would say it's one of the 3 pilgrimage festivals. So we have Shavuot, Sukkot, and Passover. Those are the 3 so-called Shalosh Regalim, the 3 pilgrimage festivals. So regel in Hebrew is leg. So these were the 3 holidays on which all adult males were expected to make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. So Passover is one of those, and obviously the story of the Exodus is really the foundational story of the Jewish people. We have the election of Abraham and the evolution of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, their children, Jacob's 12 tribes. The Israelites find themselves, because of the famine, in Egypt, and then the selection of Moses leading the people from slavery to freedom. And I think when you look at studies of the American Jewish community, Passover is the most heavily observed of all of the Jewish holidays. I think the story of the Exodus, the struggle for freedom, the notion of standing in solidarity with the oppressed that emerges out of the Jewish/Israelite experience in Passover, it becomes part of the DNA of the Jewish people. So if you look at why are Jews at the forefront of every movement for social justice in every country that we've ever been privileged to live in, I think it's a consequence of the Passover story and the fact that from year to year we sit down with our children and we tell them this story in a captivating way and convey that value that you were oppressed, you know what it's like. Make sure when you are in a position to help the oppressed that you do so. So I think that is the power of the Passover story. If you notice, there actually are 4 different names for the holiday. It's called Pesach, which referred to the Passover offering, the lamb that was offered as a sacrifice on this holiday. It's called Zman Cherutenu, the season of our freedom, which refers to this aspect that I'm talking about. As we know, 36 times the Torah tells us you should have one law for the native and the stranger. It's just drilled into us, the appreciation of freedom. And by the way, I think that really speaks to the incredible blessing of being American Jews and experiencing the free exercise of religion such as we have never had anywhere in our 3,000-year history. It's called Chag HaAviv, the spring holiday. The holiday of Passover actually has its historical roots in 2 ancient pagan holidays. One was an unleavened bread holiday and one was a spring festival. So part of the genius of Judaism has always been to take whatever was in the culture that we found ourselves and make it Jewish. And that's what happened with Passover and Chag HaMatzot, of course, also the matzah holiday. And here comes Ron to say hello. And he's developed for some reason this minhag that when I'm teaching Zoom, he brings me a cup of fennel tea.
Nice. Nice. Very nice, Ron. Penalty.
Thank
Oh,
you.
you can make a rhyme out of that.
L'chaim, smells wonderful. Yum, honey, thank you. That's so sweet. There are actually 3 mitzvot that are associated with the holiday of Passover. One is to tell the story, and we see that the biblical source there. Remember this day. Remember this day. There are actually 6 places where the Torah tells us, remember this, remember this. And at one Shabbat morning, I pointed that out to you in the Mishkan Tefillah Siddur. It actually captures all 6 of these, what are called the 6 remembrances. But it's actually a mitzvah every single day to remember the Exodus from Egypt and, of course, to tell the story. The word haggadah comes from the root lehagid, which means to tell. So that is essentially what we are doing, is telling the story. There's a mitzvah to eat matzah. It's only a mitzvah on the first 2 nights of the holiday. The rest of the holiday, the mitzvah is, as you see in the 3rd mitzvah, is to refrain from owning anything that's leavened or eating anything that's leavened. You don't actually have to eat matzah during the rest of the holiday. You only have to not eat anything that is chametz. So if you don't happen to love matzah, you could eat other things all week long. But it is a mitzvah at the Seder, and that's why we say 2 blessings at the Seder when we eat the matzah. We say the regular hamotzi because it's the bread for the meal, and we also say asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al achilat matzah, for the mitzvah of eating the matzah. The holiday is, in the biblical text, a 7-day holiday, but like the other holidays, Sukkot and Shavuot, an extra day got added on in the diaspora. So Passover became an 8-day holiday, Sukkot became 8 days, Shavuot became 2 days. And that is, as we understand, because of waiting for someone to spot the new moon and for the new moon to be announced. And so there was a concern about when did the holiday actually begin. So we added a day just to be certain. And even though we can now predict the new moons into basically infinity, the custom in the traditional universe is still to observe 8 days. However, the Reform practice is to observe 7 days. We also say Hallel on the first 2 and last 2 days of the holiday, but it's a beautiful tradition, I think, that on those intermediate days of the holiday, we say only a half Hallel. And we do that just as on the Seder, we spill a drop of wine from our cups as we mention each of the plagues, symbolizing the fact that the cup of wine is a symbol of joy and celebration. And we want to demonstrate the fact that our celebration and joy is a little bit diminished because of the suffering of our enemies. So we also express that by the fact that on the middle days of the holiday, we only say half of Hallel, which is also a service of joy and celebration. And I have to say, I had the privilege of going twice to Iraq and a number of times to Kuwait for Passover when I was in the Army. And that practice, when you're deployed in a combat environment, became exponentially more meaningful, as you can imagine, because part of what happens in war is the dehumanization of the enemy. It's hard to fight and to potentially kill people without creating some psychological and emotional distance from those individuals in order to retain one's own humanity and reconcile doing something that we normally would consider to be abhorrent, and yet when you're in the military is what's expected and the new normal. So being able to remind the soldiers in that environment that we may need to kill as part of the war, but we don't want to lose touch with a sense of compassion, the fact that these are human beings, also made in the image of God, also with families who love them, and we want to be sensitive to that suffering and try to retain that balance. This is the time of the year where we change in our prayers from our winter prayer. In the winter, we say in the Amidah, Mashiv Harach Umorid Hagashem. You make the wind blow and you bring down the rain. And then in the spring, summer, and early fall, we say Morid Hatal. You bring down the dew. So this is the time of the year when we're making that shift in our prayers. And of course, on the last day of the holiday, we have an opportunity to say Hallel. So I'll take a pause there and see if there are any questions before we move forward. No, good, okay. As you know, I could just talk straight for the next hour too. So if you don't interrupt me, that's exactly what's going to happen. So I'm not going to spend too much time on page 2, number 9. You have there the order of the Seder. I think it's pretty straightforward. I would mention that there have been some additional contemporary changes that have made. Anybody have a practice in your Seder of something that's not part of the traditional Seder? Shari, were you going to say something?
No, I was trying to hear what you were saying. Paul was whispering in my ear. What were you?
Oranges?
What were you whispering, Paul?
Something about oranges?
Well, there's a
Yes,
yeah.
very good.
Yes, Miriam.
Yeah.
So what is it about oranges?
What is it
Oh,
about oranges?
Oh, I think I know this. It's
So
somebody
I know.
said when
So-
women will be rabbis when there's an orange on the Seder table
Yeah.
or something, right?
Yes, so the apocryphal story, which has been debunked, but like any good myth, it lives on whether it's true or not, is that Susanna Heschel was giving a talk one time, and somebody from the audience, a heckler, said, "Women belong on the bima like an
Right,
orange on a Seder plate." So Susanna Heschel has said that never happened, but it's still become the
Good story.
that people put an orange just to represent the inclusion of women.
Mhm.
And Miriam's cup. Hannah made us that
Miriam's cup. Thanks, Lori. So just as we have a cup for Elijah, many people put a ornate cup for Miriam on the Seder table. Miriam, the Midrash says that as long as Miriam was alive, the people never lacked for water. And that there was this miraculous well of Miriam that accompanied people on their desert journeys. And so we honor Miriam's role as the third sibling. Aaron and Moses get a lot of play and a lot of credit, but Miriam was there as an important leader as well. So to honor her role, a ritual cup of water on the Seder plate.
So if that's the case, why is her name Bitter Water? It's kind of a negative name, isn't it?
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, Miriam Mar is like Maror.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I know she was a very angry person, and had big scars and things like that. But it seems like if there was always water, it's just interesting that her name is Miriam.
It really is. You're right.
Hmm.
So did anybody see any of the funny Seder plates that were out there this year with like the hand sanitizer and the
Yeah.
toilet paper? You know, people had, there was a lot of funny Seder humor about the virus. One of my favorites was somebody said, so washing the hands, or chatz, is one of the elements in the Seder, and it happens twice. We do it early on with no blessing, and then later, right before we're going to eat the meal, we wash our hands and we say the blessing. So somebody said this year the Seder should be light the candles, or chatz, bless the wine, or chatz, say the Kaddish, or chatz, put the karpas, or chatz. I thought that was
That could take a while.
yeah.
And I don't know if you guys.
The big complaint in my house is my hands are like raw all the time, actually from washing constantly. Anybody have any other?
Yes, using beef rather than a lamb shank or bone.
Mhm.
Excellent. And how did that evolve in your house, Judy?
Not so much in our house, but at some point when we had the synagogues, I guess I learned, and we learned that if you are vegetarian, which not really, but we do eat some vegetarian meals, but not totally, you would use a beet rather than a shank bone.
Right. So my mom was so cute this year. She wasn't sure where she was going to get a shank bone. So she had my 4-year-old granddaughter draw her a shank bone. And then
We've done that too.
She printed that and put that on the Seder plate. So I think that's going to be a new tradition for us.
That's perfect.
And what about the eggs? Does anybody have eggs on their Seder table? When I was growing, the thing was always, there was this big bowl of hard-boiled eggs, and you'd get through the whole Seder and get to the meal, and somebody would say, so when are you supposed to eat the egg? And Who else grew up with hard-boiled eggs?
Yeah,
You,
sometimes
Matt,
they
yeah,
do.
right.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm. Yeah, we've done it.
so. That's kind of also a folk practice that there's no specific reason for it. But Rabbi Arthur Waskow had there's the Shalom, the New Jewish Agenda, published some Seder services, and there's a Seder for social justice in there. And Arthur Waskow said, the reason we have a hard-boiled egg is to remind us that the longer things are in hot water, the tougher they become.
Oh, that's good.
So I
Never heard that. That's good.
love that.
Like that.
Yeah.
So counting the omer, other interesting facts, number 10. Let's just look at this in a minute. In a little while, we're going to spend some more time talking more in depth about counting the omer. But I just want to look at the biblical text here. It says, in the book of Leviticus, you shall count from the day after the day of rest, the day you brought the omer offering that is waved, 7 complete weeks until the day after the 7th week, you shall count 50 days. So the Torah is telling us from Passover to Shavuot, you're supposed to count each day. You know, when you're looking forward to something, you're counting the days. You know, how many days till I go on vacation? How many days till his birthday? You know, whatever it is. So Passover celebrates freedom. Shavuot celebrates what?
That's not the Torah. Yeah, the giving of the Torah.
Giving of the Torah and receiving
Giving of the Torah.
of the Torah. So the Torah represents structure. Freedom is unconstrained, but we're not just appreciating our freedom to do anything we want, however we want, whenever we want. There is a sense of discipline and structure and order in Jewish life that's given by Torah. So we're looking forward to that. And so Jews tending to take things literally, the Torah says you should count each day. So we have this ritual that we're going to explore in a couple of minutes where we literally count each day until the holiday of Shavuot. There's also a fabulous tradition of Pesach Sheni, which is the holiday of second chances. So this was built into our tradition that if you were traveling, if you were sick, if you forgot, for whatever reason, you were not able to observe Passover on the 14th of Nisan, there's Pesach Sheni, the second Passover on the 14th of Iyar, and you could have Passover then. And, you know, it's just a beautiful reminder that you can always have another chance. There's always another chance.
Oh, excuse me. When I was talking to Dana, oh my goodness, Dana Adler, who's the Pacific area president of Women of Reformed Judaism, she was telling us that her synagogue in Tucson has delayed their Passover Seder to have a Passover Sheni, but I don't know at this point whether they will push that, you know, do that or not.
Yeah, it's you know, again, it's the unknown that we're contending with here and now. I mean, it's so brilliant that our tradition created this opportunity, anticipating that there's all kinds of reasons that people would not be able to observe Passover in the first place, and building that structure in. It's so wise, and yet, you know, who knows if even a month from now we'll be able to get together and have Seders. At Temple Chai for the last couple of years, we've had a Pesach Sheni, almost kind of like a healing service, and focusing in specifically on people who maybe had a very grave illness and were given a second chance, or who had a terrible accident and were given a second chance, and just appreciating that idea a second chance in whatever form that may be in our lives. But yeah, we may need a Pesach Shlishi this year, a third Passover. But whenever we get through the Red Sea and get liberated, it'll be good this year.
Thank you.
So the word Mitzrayim in Hebrew comes from the root Meitzar, which is a narrow place.
Narrow.
Think about what the country of Egypt looks like. It's a narrow place. So the word Mitzrayim is to be in a tight place, to be in a place of being constrained. And I think that's also something that's especially meaningful for us this year, that we're all kind of very stuck and very confined and looking forward to that expansiveness. You might remember in the Hallel, one of the Hallel Psalms says, Min HaMeitzar Karatiya, from the narrow place I called to God. Meitzar is the narrow place, related etymologically to Mitzrayim. So I'm moving to page 3 of my handout, and I wanted to look a little bit at the Haggadah and share some insights that are meaningful to me. The first thing is a song that we've typically done at our Seders. It's kind of fun. One of the things about Zoom is that you can't really sing together real well. So I'll just sing you the opening verse, and you'll get the sense of it, and you could save it for your Pesach next year or your Pesach Sheni or Shlishi this year. So we always like to start with an opening song. This one is, there's no Seder like our Seder. There's no Seder I know. Everything about it is halachic. Nothing that the Torah won't allow. Listen while we read the whole Haggadah. It's all in Hebrew, because we know how. Anyway, it goes on like that. So I hope you all got to see.
I love that.
Yeah. If you haven't, look online for the Saturday night Seder last night. How many people saw that?
No.
We're going to watch the rest of it tonight. Yeah.
Yes.
Judy, what did you think?
I actually didn't see it last night. I saw it this afternoon, but I thought it was well done. I mean, it was introducing a lot of actors and singers who either sang or some of it was a takeoff on a Seder. Some of it was really serious. Adina Menzel did some really serious singing, but it was a very nice presentation. Yeah.
I thought her 4 questions were such a highlight.
Yes.
Just what an exquisite voice.
So what was that? Was that part of Saturday Night Live or something? Was that?
Not really. No, it was just a whole bunch of actors and singers. They did it as a fundraiser for the CDC Foundation. And
it's on YouTube. You can find it.
Yeah.
What's it called? Just Saturday Night?
Saturday Night Seder.
Okay.
Yeah. I highly recommend. I didn't want to watch it. Ron dragged me kicking and screaming. And I was really glad that he did, because I'm not usually, a TV person, but it was wonderful. There was a lot that was really touching. A lot of great insights about, what struck me so much was the adaptability of the Seder ritual and the eternality of the themes of the holiday and how much they could be applied to our contemporary situation. And I thought they really did that in a very beautiful way. So we experience enslavement. I'm on number 2 now, in many ways. And there again, there's one of those themes. I think some of us may feel very, if not enslaved, certainly like we're being held captive right now in the present moment. And if you look on page 4, this is from one of my favorite Haggadot, which is called the Santa Cruz Haggadah. And what I love about this Haggadah is it takes the message of the Passover story and interprets it in a very personal, psychological way. So here it is, it's talking about the ways that we feel enslaved. And so she says, our bodies were enslaved. How might we feel physically trapped right now? Our souls were enslaved. How do we feel spiritually trapped right now? And I like that idea of thinking about the Passover experience, not only in a national communal level, but also in a personal level. Where do we each need to feel a sense of liberation? And that's something I think that is relevant beyond the coronavirus and the situation that we're in now. It's a good opportunity at Passover to ask ourselves, what are those changes that we would like to make? Where are we looking for liberation? I don't know if there's anything that comes up for anybody that you would want to share, or if you just want to take that as something to reflect on individually. Yeah, Lori?
No, I mean, I feel like, obviously physically we're enslaved. We have to stay in one place. But I think that, so this whole idea of the soul enslavement, I'm just, it's so hard because I just keep thinking of the worst case scenario, and I'm going on the news and I'm really pissed off about what's happening and why we're here where we should be. And I keep trying to just say, you need to let go of that control, because I think we're a society that thinks we have control over everything. And I just think that that can be a form of slavery. Like if, you have to, I have to figure out how to control this. And I'm just trying to do this thing where I say, look, I'm just staying off of all this. I'm just going to figure out where I can do some good work, and that's all I can do. I'm not running the country. I'm not making the big decisions. So I think about that idea of control as being a bit of enslavement.
I love that. It's so true. And that's certainly one aspect of this experience, is realizing how little control we may have. My daughter was talking about that. My 4-year-old granddaughter has really been suffering a little bit with her whole world being uprooted, and the constraints that she's feeling now. And she's really been acting out more than she typically does. And my daughter's interpretation of that is that she has no control anywhere in her life. And so she's just crying. She throws these major fits, and trying to be sensitive and understanding that this is her attempt to bring some control to a situation where she has no control.
I can relate to that. I really can. We had an experience 2 weeks ago. We've been using Instacart to get our groceries, and it's been very good. And the thing is that, you can't get paper towels or toilet paper in the stores or whatever. And we had the same shopper shop for us twice just by random chance. And she became like our friend, and couldn't you chat back and forth with them when they're shopping, and they call you because they get lost, and you give them directions and all that stuff. Anyway, a week and a half ago, she texted me on a Thursday night, and she said, I heard a rumor that Fry's is going to have paper towels tomorrow. And I was like, how do I get in on this? And she says, place your order through Instacart and have it for tomorrow delivery. I was like, but I can't order them if they're not in stock. She said, just order whatever, and when the shopper's in the store, then you can ask them to look for it and add it to your cart. So that's what we did. We said, well, we're not going to bother with the Friday morning trying to do this. So we Thursday night at 8 o'clock, we're on the computer and we're filling up the cart with whatever that we need, and, with this intention. And what it said was the next available delivery was at Friday at 7 p.m. And we were like, well, we're going to miss what are we going to do? All right, we better just sign up for that because at least they'll get in sooner and maybe we'll have a chance tomorrow. So we hit the button to say pay and off it goes. And it's like 8:30 on a Thursday night. And all of a sudden, wouldn't you know it, suddenly Robert is shopping for us in fries. And I have to say, I flipped out. I lost it completely. I was so stressed and I was like, what are we going to do? This isn't what we wanted. And he's got to go tomorrow because tomorrow's when the toilet paper is going to be, the paper towels are going to be there. And I was so beyond stressed. And Lori, I think it's exactly what you're saying. I mean, I can't even control getting paper towels.
Yeah.
And, Paul was able to be the bigger person and to write a nice text to him and figure out how to work the app so that we got in touch with this poor guy and he went home. And the next morning, sure enough, somebody picked up our order and she started texting with us and we said, can you look for paper towels? And she said, well, there aren't any. We said, well, could you ask somebody? We heard they're going to get them. And lo and behold, they're unloading a pallet right now and we got our paper towels.
Unbelievable.
But I really think what you said, Lori, it just strikes it rings so true.
But it's
and what you were
funny to
saying,
me-
Rabbi, about your granddaughter, it just rings so true that not having control over basic things.
Right.
Right.
And how we're all so stressed on an edge that you just don't know what's going to push you over the limit.
I know, what a silly thing. I mean, I'm almost embarrassed to admit it, but here I am admitting it. I flipped out and had a complete
Because he got
meltdown
the
about paper towels.
That's because he got the paper towels ultimately.
Well,
Now I'm happy, but
as you started off saying, you're under a lot of pressure, working 1 million hours. And
yeah.
Everybody's facing the stress in different ways.
Yeah,
and
I
you
have
just
to
don't
think
know.
about something that normally you wouldn't even think about.
Yeah, just right.
So you'll notice I included this text on page 5 from Rabbi Gila Rezel Raphael, taking a moment when we get to the Karpas to recognize the many, many people who were not born Jewish, who may still not be Jewish, but who want to celebrate the holiday with us, who join us, and how much our community is enriched by the expanding our tent to include non-Jews and Jews by choice. So I think that that's a really important thing to take a moment and recognize and acknowledge at this holiday.
Well, we had Hannah's boyfriend. That's the only person we're allowing outside the family to be part of the family because he is. He came and he spent a lot of Shabbats with us, and he's so cute. He's learned the prayers. And then we have an exchange student from Morocco. So it was really kind of cool because we went through all the words, all the things on the plate and all the words for the order of the Seder, and asked her how we would translate that word to Arabic. And there was a lot of similarity.
Yes.
And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's
celebrate that together.
Yeah. So, we're getting, I think our Muslim friends are getting ready to enter into the month of Ramadan. And you may be aware that the appropriate greeting for Ramadan is Ramadan Mubarak. That's how you would greet someone during that time of Ramadan. Ramadan Mubarak. Mubarak obviously is the same word as Mivorach, a blessed Ramadan. Ramadan Mubarak. On page 6, the rabbis say that the Israelites were redeemed from Egypt because of the righteousness of the women. Now, this is pretty fascinating because, these were not notorious feminists, the rabbis of 2,000 years ago, and yet they recognized the important role that women played in the story of the Exodus. And here's a contemporary song that we always like to include in our Seder. Again, I'm not going to sing the whole thing, but just to give you the idea. Sandy Koppell, you signing off there, or? She's muted. I don't know what she's doing.
She says she's going to bed, I think.
Okay, bye. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
No. I'm cleaning up my kitchen, so I don't have to clean it up after.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Still with us. Well, don't leave without saying goodnight. So the women. So this is a wonderful song about the role of 5 important women in the story of the Exodus. The 2 midwives wouldn't listen to Pharaoh, wouldn't drown the Hebrew infants, oh no, no. It was Shifra, it was Puah who saved each baby Jew. Those 2 midwives wouldn't listen to Pharaoh. Moses' mother hid him from the evil ones, for he was her flesh and blood, he was her son. Yocheved made an ark, put her baby in the dark. Moses' mother hid him from the evil ones. Anyway, goes on like that.
That's funny.
Good.
Like it.
I think I'm
Wow.
going to skip number 5. I'm going to fast forward to number 6. Number 6, you have 2 different versions of Dayenu. Dayenu is one of my favorite parts of the Seder. It's one of the parts of the Seder that I find most meaningful. My mother's father, Papa Jaime, always, by the time we got to Dayenu, he had a bit to drink. So our family custom was and is that when you get to Dayenu, you stand on the chair. So we all stand on our chairs and sing Dayenu, Dayenu. So it has a special meaning for me. But I wanted to share with you and point out 2 different versions of Dayenu. The first one comes from the New Jewish Agenda Seders, and it's very much of a political statement. What would we want in our communities in order to say Dayenu, it's enough? Would it be when the workers of the world have just compensation, when the environment is protected, when people can practice their own religions, make their own decisions about their bodies, when children grow up without with enough food to eat, when there's peace, when no elderly person has to fear hunger, cold, or loneliness. So I love that idea of asking ourselves, what's Dayenu? You know, we live in a world and in cultures where it's always about more. We always want more. We always want more. So at what point would we say it's enough? So one of my favorite stories is when the kids were growing up, I asked my daughter Jessie one year right before Passover, so is there anything in your life about which you could say Dayenu? Or, you know, is it all about, you know, I want this, I want this, I want this? And she thought for a minute. She was maybe 8 or 9 years old. She said, I think I have Dayenu Barbies. There were probably 20 Barbies living in my house.
Really cute.
At the time. I love that she got that idea.
Doesn't that sound like a good name for a rock band, Dayenu Barbie?
Dayenu Barbies.
Dayenu Barbies.
It should have been in the Saturday Night Fever, Dayenu Barbies. Then from that same Santa Cruz haggadah that I mentioned earlier, a very, very personal version of Dayenu. So this one starts on page 10. So listen to this. If we could only see how short and precious life is and take care of ourselves without having to be reminded through tragedy or ill health. If we could only catch ourselves about to speak Lashon Hara. If we could listen to each other, if we could regularly feel heard and understood. Wow, how amazing would that be? And then then there's the egg thing, which I already mentioned. So we're on actually page 13 now, if you're following along in the handout. So I think for many people, one of the most challenging sections of the Haggadah is the pour out your wrath on those who don't know you. And
In the mission.
yeah, right. It's after the meal, after the blessing, after the meal, around opening the door for Elijah. So, it's hard because, we like to come from a place more of kindness and love and compassion. The idea of being wrathful and angry is challenging for us to relate to. So I like this particular reading that is also from, I guess it's from the Santa Cruz Haggadah also. So who are the actual targets of our wrath? And I like the way she concludes it. If after tasting the fruit of their actions, they still choose to continue with these actions, then we say, okay, may they experience an appropriate sense of wrath. So moving along to this idea of counting the omer on page 15 and 16. So let me pull up my chart of the Sfirot here, just a minute, and show you this. So can everybody see this chart of the Sfirot? So in Kabbalah, here, let me make that big so you don't have to look at me and Ron there. So in the Kabbalistic view of the universe, there are these 10 Sefirot, and they represent the flow of divine energy as it comes from God to us. So it flows through these pathways of the Sefirot, and they're divided into 3 upper and 7 lower Sefirot. So we have, God is out here, the Ein Sof, God is completely unknowable. And we have these 3 upper Sefirot, but the counting of the Omer, there's a Kabbalistic practice that I find very meaningful, where each of the 7 weeks of counting the Omer is ruled by one of these big ideas. So the first week of counting the Omer, where we are right now, is the week of Chesed. It's the week of love or loving acts of kindness. And then because we have 7 Sefirot, we have one big idea each day. And then each day we have another nuance. So we have Gevura of Chesed. What's the strength of love? We have Tiferet of Chesed. What's the beauty of love? We have Hod. What's the splendor of love? What's the endurance of love? So over the course of the 7 weeks of counting the Omer, every single day has its own nuance. And it's really a beautiful practice each night to count the Omer, to count that day, and to reflect on the particular qualities of that day of counting the Omer. And I gave you there on page 15 a bunch of different resources. There are, of course, various apps and emails that you can sign up for that will send you every single day a different Omer meditation or reflection. So you might want to take a look at those. The Mourner Institute has one, Rabbi Simon Jacobson. There are a couple of books there. So take a look at those. We're now, as I said, in the week of Chesed, the week of loving acts of kindness. And on page 17 is the blessing for counting the Omer. So let's say that blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu
melech
Ha'olam,
asher
Shani Mitzvotav, Omer.
And we say Hayom Arba'ah Yamim. It's the 4th day, La Omer. We're in the week of Chesed, and we're in the day of Netzach, which is victory. So you think about what is the victory within loving acts of kindness, within chesed. So if you have a thought, I'd be interested to hear that. For me, when I think about it in this moment, I think that the victory is to be able to come from a place of chesed, to act with love and kindness, even maybe in situations where we're not feeling it so much. So that's one aspect of the netzach shebechesed, the victory within kindness. And anybody else have a thought of what's victorious about loving acts of kindness?
If a loving act of kindness were to in some way spur another loving act of kindness, by doing something, it might inspire somebody, or just the effect that you could have and the ripple effect. I think that's the victory.
I love that. So just creating more kindness in the world. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah.
So just something to think about. I also thought it was important, since we're not going to have a yizkor service this week. Yizkor traditionally is on Thursday in the Reform world on Wednesday. Temple Chai is going to have a yizkor service Wednesday morning that will be live streamed. So if anybody wants to join us for that service, I'm sure I'm sure that the link will be on the Temple Chai page on Facebook. So just, feel free to join us. But I did think it was important while we were together to have an opportunity to just remember our loved ones. So again, let's go around. First of all, any final questions or comments? Because I want to conclude with the Kaddish. Okay, so we're going to go around. I'll ask each person if you want to share a little bit about who you are remembering at this yizkor moment, and then we'll say Kaddish together. I'll organize the link to this conversation and get it to Paul so that he can share it with whoever wasn't here and might like to tune in. But Shari and Paul, who do you?
Well, I'm thinking about my father, who died 26 years ago on April 23rd, 1994. And the reason I'm thinking of him, I think of him every day, but the reason I'm thinking of him so much, as Shari alluded to earlier, my mother turns 100 2 days before the day, 2 days before he passed. So this time of the year, I'm always thinking of my mother. I'm always thinking of my father, especially this year with my mother turning 100.
Wow. Shari, are you saying yizkor for anyone?
Well, I would always, of course, I would remember my father, of course, who died in 2016, very, suddenly, very suddenly.
I lost my dad in 2016 also, and he died on the second day of Pesach. So it's an easy yahrzeit to remember, because it's always the second Seder that when we sit down for second Seder, we light candles and we light a yahrzeit candle for him. And of course, my husband David, who died in 2015, he died just a couple of days before Shavuot in 2015. So
both between the omer, both during the counting of the omer.
Yeah. Lori?
I'm thinking of everybody I've lost. So my mother, she died way too early, 1993. My dad died 10 and a half years later. I mean, I really miss my mother-in-law and father-in-law who passed away, my sister-in-law who passed away in 2013, and my other sister-in-law who passed away in 2005. So it's just missing lots of people. And then more recently, I'm thinking about Garrett, and I'm thinking about my mentor, who I worked with for years, who was just, I was so lucky to know him. The rheumatologist I worked with, Dr. Eric Gall, every time I think about him, I just break into tears because he was just like a force to be reckoned with. And it's weird that anybody like that could not be here anymore. So I just, you know, I'm always thinking of lots of different people.
Yeah, so you're really young to have experienced so much loss.
No, I'm not. Pretty old.
Judy?
Not well, Garrett especially for this time of year, because that was very recent. And yeah, I mean, otherwise I'm always thinking of Bob's parents and my grandmother who died on my 30th birthday. I mean, it was another time of year, but we were very, very close. So that's it. Yeah.
Wow. Rachel?
My mother, Bernice Lemesis, passed away last July. And we were scheduling the weekend that my younger daughter is supposed to graduate from high school, the end of May. My sister and her family were going to come out, and we were supposed to have a headstone unveiling that we were going to go down for on Sunday. So I don't know that any of that's going to happen right now, but I have very good memories of spending many Passovers with her. And she taught me, how to make matzo balls, and she would help me doctor up my soup and make it taste really good. And so she was here with us in spirit. And, I've said to my sister several times during this whole thing, I'm really glad she passed away when she did and isn't having to face this whole coronavirus thing, and we wouldn't be able to visit her, and just, the timing was good. It's good she left when she did.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
David?
Thank you, Lori and Judy, for mentioning Garrett. Certainly that's the very recent loss and still with everyone. Personally, I'm remembering my father. He passed away about 5 years ago or so.
And Sarah, we haven't heard from, so. Well, I'll say the Kaddish if you want to mute yourselves and join in. Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'yalma Divra Chirute, V'yamlich Malchute, V'chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chayei D'chol Beit Yisrael, V'agala V'zman Kori V'yamru, Amen.
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach La'olam La'omel Maya. Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar V'yitale V'yitalal Shemei D'Kudusha Barichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'yimru, amen. Yehi shlom rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru, amen. Well, thank you all for joining in. Chag Sameach. I will look forward to seeing you live and in person. Bimhera v'yameinu, speedily and in our day.
Thank you so much, Rabbi.
Thank you.
It was a wonderful learning session.
Yes, this was excellent.
Great to see everybody. And Paul, I'll get you the recording so you can share it then. All right, everybody, Sei gesund.
Sei gesund.
Sei gesund. Thank you again.
Bye.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Bye.